Welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast, where we talk about the struggles and celebrations that leaders and entrepreneurs experience on their journey to success. I'm your host, Kristina, and I'm passionate about helping you achieve massive amounts of success at work and at home. We'll talk about all things people and organizational wellness, share relatable stories, and feature insightful guests because quality people and processes are at the heart of every success story. Ready to learn, grow, and have fun? Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast. I'm your host, Kristina Schmitt. Whether we are talking about founders juice or empowered employees or just employee engagement, it doesn't matter what we call it. We all want something like this for our team. We want them to care so much that they're going to push just a little extra harder. They're going to inspect that part just a little bit better. They're going to push to solve the problem rather than just complain about it. This, in the last, I don't know how many years, very many years, probably my whole working career, this term of this engaged employees, highly motivated or highly engaged employees, empowered employees, all these buzzwords get thrown around to describe this attitude and this behavior that we want from our team. And it typically will reflect that of a founder, that of someone who's in the hustle of trying to start up. And the truth is that hustle culture is not sustainable in the long term. And it's especially not sustainable if you're working for somebody else. Yes, we have people in the world out there that care a ton, but if they don't get some of these things that they need, then they're going to lose some of that excitement, that energy, that engagement that we want. And they might move into not caring as much, just, okay, whatever, doing the bare minimum, or even worse, they might start to feel resentment and actually become disengaged or actively disengaged employees, which is really what this quiet quitting that people keep acting like it's new, but it's not. It's actually just a very horrible way to be very disengaged. And that can kill great teams. And it can especially kill great smaller teams because there's just no one else to pick up the slack. And the problem is that the more disengaged or actively disengaged employees that we have in our business, the less actively engaged or very empowered employees that we're going to have for two reasons. Number one, your great employees are going to get really sick of the ones that are not so great, and they're going to leave because they're like, well, clearly this company does not share my value system. And number two, sometimes they just say, well, why do I care anymore? And that's that resentment that just leads to disengagement or quiet quitting, as they like to call it. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you 3 things that your team needs from you as a leader. And these 3 things are going to help you get your team more engaged. It's going to help you keep the right people, and it's going to help you attract the right people. And ultimately, it's going to help you move them closer to caring as much as a founder, entrepreneur is going to care about their business. So let's get started. Number 1, what these team members will need from you is consistent direction. What this really means is that they need from you a steady vision of where you're going. Now, that might sound boring, and you might be at first saying, well, I need to change. I need to move. I need to be doing these things. Yes, of course you do. You need to be moving and you need to be hustling to some extent. You need to be keeping up with trends or, not keeping up with trends. Somehow, yes, of course you need to change. And yes, you're allowed to change direction in your business. The problem is, and what we don't want is we can't have you changing every week. We can't have you having flavors of the month or whatever you want to deem it. They need to know that there is a vision. We are working towards the vision, and here's a project that moves us towards that vision. And then when we complete that project, we then move to the next one. And something happened. Here's why we're abandoning this project and we're moving to this one. The thing is, they need communication around it. They need to know that there's a plan, and they need you to tell them the reasons why. And really all this is like, while it might seem very clear to you or even the leadership team, because you have these conversations, you understand why you've changed directions, the bigger your employee pool is, the less clarity they have around that. So you have to translate what's in your brain out to everybody else. And so I will say what I've said many times, but communicate, communicate, communicate. This helps with that tremendously so that people feel comfortable. They need this comfort level of consistency because when there's uncertainty, when there's questioning, that's what breeds fear. And fear can just make us do all kinds of things that we won't do when we're not afraid. It makes us act somewhat irrationally and makes us second guess ourselves. It makes us spend a lot of unneeded energy towards something that really doesn't mean anything. So what you want to be doing is offering this consistent levels of communication, consistency in projects that you're working on, and consistency in your behaviors. So I know I'm going to call myself out here. I know as a leader, there were so many times when I was very, very stressed. And as I said, when we're fearful, fear is a form of stress. We don't think straight, right? We've got a lot of adrenaline flowing. We've got cortisol flowing. We've got emotions everywhere. And we kind of feel like a rubber band that's really already stretched. And you stretch a little bit more and it's going to go and snap. And what that does is it causes us to not always behave the way we should. And I know as a leader, there were some mornings when I flip out about, too many cups on my desk. There's a funny story there. But there's also and then other days when I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally fine. It makes sense, or, oh, that's hilarious. But that inconsistency created some apprehension to come to me. And it made me, I'll be honest, it made me feel foolish later because I was like, why did I blow up over that? Because I was already pre-stressed. And that inconsistency or that blowing up aspect or whatever it might be, that inconsistent response to actions, life, whatever, that creates more fear and more questions about what's going on. So what they need from you is a consistent message, consistent messaging from you and your team, and this consistent behavior model. It'll take the fear out. It'll let people know what they're going to get, and it'll help you keep people's energy focused on the right things, not on how is my leader going to react today, or which direction are we going today, or which new project are we going to go work on today, because I don't know. That leads to that confusion and annoyance. Number 2 thing that your team needs, they need goals that matter. So what does that mean? Let's get clear on this one. So I'm going to talk about this in 2 different ways. So the first one is a subject kind of called right work. So it's this understanding of the big picture of what we're working on. You may have heard the parable about the cathedral where there's 3 bricklayers. They are all laying bricks. So the first one, you go up to him and say, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm laying some bricks. Okay. Yeah, he's excited. He knows what he's doing. He knows his job, but he's laying bricks. Okay. The second one, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm building this wall. Okay, cool. You're building a wall. That's exciting. It's a little bit bigger than just laying bricks, but okay. The third one, you go up to, what are you doing? I'm building a cathedral. That's kind of got some meat to it. That's exciting. That's motivating. That is bigger than the bricklaying. But the bricklaying is such a critical aspect of it. There's another story around NASA where people are coming to visit the NASA place and someone's, sweeping the floor. And someone says, oh, what do you do here? And rather than say, I sweep the floors, he says, I'm helping us get to the moon. I'm helping us go to space. Because even though it might seem like just sweeping the floor, it's so much more than that because we need the floor swept. That needs to get done. And every person is part of that cog in the whole system that's going to help us get there. So helping people to not just understand this big picture, so this exciting thing we might be doing, maybe, you're building car parts, like, hey, we're building the Ford F-250s. That's cool. That's exciting. Every time I see them, that's super cool. So that can be something. But my role in that is so important because if I didn't do this part of it, then the parts wouldn't get out the door, or we couldn't meet customer demands, or we couldn't, whatever it might be. So it's a twofold thing. It's getting people excited about what you're doing and then helping them to see how their role contributes to that big goal. So these are hugely important for so many reasons. So the first reason it's important is that people like to feel like they're contributing. So they need to understand how the work that they do contributes to others. So you might say, well, no, these people don't feel like contributing. That's not true. We just haven't given them something valuable to contribute to. So if you really look back at times in your life when you've been successful or you've felt really good, it's because you've had something to push for, something to drive for, something that actually mattered. So when we can give that to each and every one of our team members, that's going to push them more. That's going to get them excited. So what that really looks like is we get people understanding what the big goal is. So in our 6 critical questions, we talk about why do we exist? So it might be that you build cars, but maybe you exist for another reason. Train up problem solvers to better fill the world with excellent problem solvers. Like maybe that's why the company actually started up in the first place. Or it could be, you want to contribute to the community in which you live and create a culture there where businesses support businesses or something like that. Like there is probably a reason that people started their job. Or you want to make something beautiful for people to look at. Part of that beauty might be building a car. I'm not a car fan, but I like it to get me from point A to point B. But those kinds of things matter. It matters that we know the big picture. But what matters even more, or at least just as much, is feeling like you're getting to have a contribution to that. So once we get them to understand what the big picture, why we exist, what the ultimate purpose of the company is, now let's break it down to show a very tangible, executable goal. So if you know the SMART acronym, it's part of the SMART, but a very tangible thing that they can get to that leads to them contributing in some way. And yes, you might be working with someone who's sweeping the floor, but hey, you need to sweep the floor by 6 a.m. in this area because everybody's walking through here. This is the first impression that everybody, the whole team gets when they walk in the door. And we need them to feel, number one, like they're coming into somewhere that they can be proud of. And number two, somewhere that's safe. So these are huge. Like floor sweeping is hugely important. Keeping the bathrooms clean, hugely important. And we need to treat people that way and we need them to feel that way. So we need to take it down and break down our strategy into these tangible goals for each and every person. That probably sounds like a lot of work, but it is worth it. I promise you. If people feel like they're contributing, if people feel like they are working towards something that is bigger and important than just them, that's life satisfaction, not just employee satisfaction. That's life satisfaction. That is part of this. I don't want to call it's part of the spiritual element of which we live. People feel like, and they need to feel like they are part of something bigger than themselves and they're contributing to that. And that's what this whole second one is all about. So practically speaking, what you should be doing when you're rolling strategy or strategic goals or even like big departmental goals out to the teams. The leader of those teams should be working with each individual employee about their goals, and their goals should contribute to the bigger goal. So just clarifying how that connects and what the impact of them doing their goal well, doing it on time, doing it to the best of their ability, if they can see how their goal contributes to the bigger goal, that's going to be motivating. So you can then stress, hey, it's important that it's done by this date because these other 10 goals depend upon it. Well, maybe, getting the report out on Monday is super important. And now we're just giving that much more effort. So what that does is it feels prideful, like it gives them a sense of accomplishment, which then motivates and creates momentum to do more things and then makes them feel good about themselves. And it makes you get your things done on time. But when we feel good about ourselves at work, then we can also feel good when we leave work rather than going, oh, this was a drudge all day long. It's keeping these goals that matter alive, keeping them in front of everybody and making everybody see that connection is absolutely huge for getting people to really care and getting people to be as excited about the work as you are. And the last one, this one is huge. And I'm just going to get into it and then I'll explain it. This one's big though. Pay attention and recognize your good and consistent employees. We're paying attention to the good team members, the good employees. So you're like, oh, of course I do that. But do you? So I want you to think about how you spend your time, because just looking at the questions that I get from clients, from people that I speak to, from like online social media posts, that kind of thing, the questions that I always get, and feedback from learning training sessions, the questions I always get is, how do I deal with these super difficult employees? So what that says to me, and what I know from my own experience, is that we spend an inordinate amount of time focusing on our most difficult employees. The ones that give us the headaches, the ones that keep us up at night, the ones that we're trying to get them over the finish line to get better, to improve, or to work within our system well. But what we don't do is I get almost no questions about, how do I make my good employees even better? Because you're already saying, oh, they're already good. But I love the Gallup group with all their research and all their stuff. And this also feeds into the strengths, because that's how the Gallup all started, is from the Strengths Finder. What we can get so much more benefit by helping and by building on our strengths. So we can take something we're already good at and we can make it way better by putting in a little bit of effort. Whereas when we're having a struggle with something, maybe it's a weakness, but we can put an inordinate amount of effort into it only to make a small improvement. So this feeds into what all my talk about the working geniuses and frustrations. Like, if you want to improve, you're going to work harder at your strengths, or work harder at your geniuses, or do more with your geniuses, and only bring your frustrations or bring your weaknesses up to where they're not hurting you anymore. So that means delegate those things. That means just get to a minimum level that you can get by. Use like tips and tricks that I give a lot to help you work in that frustration area so that you can just get through. So with your team members, what I want you to think about is the fact that there's probably, in your whole population of your employee group, there's probably 10% who are awesome. They do everything that you ask and more. And if you could clone them 100 times, you would have 100 people that you loved working there, that were the best employees ever. And you probably have about 10% that might be even, like, hopefully not, but might be actively disengaged, probably don't fit your mold well, or just not performing up to snuff where they need to be. That leaves 80% of the people who are in the middle. These 80% of people, you can almost look at them and call them watchers, right? They are watching what you're doing. They're watching what happens to the top 10, and they're watching what happens with the bottom 10. And as much as we like to think we grow out of these things that we may have done in school, like seeking attention, we haven't. We are still children inside. We learn so many of our responses to things when we're children, and they're ingrained in us through this programming and our neural pathways that we've made before the age of 5. So we are still acting like children, and many of us still seek some kind of attention, and most people want some kind of recognition. So when these 80% of people, so you're spending all this time on the 10% of the people that are problematic, pushing limits in a not good way, and actively being disengaged, then they're like, well, I want the boss to come talk to me too. Oh, maybe I'll just, push this way. I guess, if they can get away with it, I can get away with it too. So like, they start watching that these people are getting away with everything and they're still here. Why am I working this hard? So they start to lower themselves. Versus if they see you spending time with and encouraging the top 10%, and you spend time with and recognize consistent good performance, because that's really what we need. Yes, we would love to have outstanding performance from everybody, but we need to recognize the consistent performance too. Then people will start to elevate. They will start to say, oh, they like it when I do this, and I can get good attention, positive attention from my leader, and will come talk to me to give me accolades as well. Oh, that's exciting. Not just the bad stuff. So when we can do that, now we bring the team up rather than bringing the team down. Because when we do nothing, or we pay no attention to the good and the consistent, people will go and, take the easy road out. So this might feel hard. I personally have been struggling with this exact thing in my own life. I actually find myself, I'm really good at being critical about myself, and I have a really hard time recognizing good things. So if you can't recognize it in you, you're probably struggling, or maybe just don't see it because it's like, well, it just should be good. It should go well. I should expect that. Why do I have to recognize it? I hear that a lot. If you struggle with that within yourself, you might be struggling to do it for others. So a great place to start, if you find yourself being one of those people that excel at editing or correcting or always giving improvements to things, start to recognize good things in yourself. Start to recognize good things in others and say something about it all the time. So it can help to set a goal of, I'm going to give 3 recognition statements today, or I'm going to recognize 3 different people, or I'm going to just compliment 3 people. Because when we can just start to practice this, we start to recognize good things, not just negative things. That can be extremely helpful for shifting and making that shift to recognizing consistent performance, recognizing great performance, recognizing your key players, even if they're not the superstars that we might think about. Because if you look at like I like to use the analogy of like a basketball team. Like if you have one superstar on the basketball team, your team, yeah, you'll probably do well, but that doesn't get championships, because if you have 4 other people that are kind of so-so or not getting recognized, not being passed to, you're easy to like just double team the good one, right? And you're easy to overtake. If you've got 5 good, consistent players that can work together well, that builds a team. You can win championships like crazy for that. So understanding that your consistent players, your consistent team members, like they are doing so much to contribute to the success of your business, and recognizing that in them is absolutely huge. If you're not sure how to do this, all right, number 1, like I said, start practicing noticing good things. Look at that consistency and recognize somebody for their consistency, because that's huge. That's that attitude we want to build anyways. But I will give you my quick acronym for giving a really effective recognition. All right. I like to say it's spit it out. Okay. Because number 1, that's a reminder to just get it out of your head, right? Say the good thing out loud. So spit it out. But it's also an acronym for how to give it well. So the SP come together for being very specific. So when you recognize something good, be very specific about what the good thing is. Okay. So if somebody is showing up every single day, ready to work, they're at the meeting on time, all their actions are completed, and you never have to go and correct them, be very specific. And say to them, you show up every single day with your actions ready and done. If you can't get them done, you're prepared with questions, or you've already started to ask the questions before the meeting. And thank you. That is helpful. And that is a great example for everybody else. So thank you for that consistency, or thank you for that dedication, whatever it is. So like you're being very specific what they're doing so they can do more of it. The second, the I. So what's the impact of them showing up with their actions completed every single time? Well, the impact to the team is I can always count on the fact, or the team is that those actions are always done, and I know they're always going to be done. And the impact to me is I know that I can count on you. And that is extremely helpful. So thank you. Right. So, okay, the impact of that. So great to give impact for the team. Even better to give impact of how it's impacted you as the leader personally, because that's like, oh, wow, that's really good. I'm really helping. And then the T is timely. So we want to do it as soon as we can, because if you wait 6 months to do it, now you've got like the 6-month time frame where this person's been performing consistently, thinking that nobody cares, thinking that it doesn't matter. Where this goes wrong, where this can be a big problem, is it can lead to resentment. And that resentment can lead to the lowering of performance. It can lead to them leaving. It can lead to a whole lot of bad things. It can lead to that quiet quitting, right? Because they don't think people care. So it's important to pay attention to your consistent team members and your really excellent team members as well. And just give them a little bit, because you're going to get a lot more. So if we do these 3 things, if we start to have very consistent direction, being very clear with, who should be doing what and how they should be doing it, and consistent with that direction and the communication of that direction. Number 2, having goals that matter. So both the big goal of the company translated down to even the smallest goal that happens in the business, And number 3, paying attention to our good and consistent employees and recognizing them for it. If we can do these 3 things, your culture is just going to have this huge change. People are going to want to do the work. People are going to feel good about doing the work. People are going to know the direction of the business and want to be a part of it. And that's exciting. That's a win for you because you get your team working the way you hope that they work. And it's a win for them because they're going to feel fulfilled. They're going to feel like they're contributing to something bigger than themselves. And they're going to leave work lifted up versus drained completely of all of their will. So let's start doing these 3 things. If you enjoyed today's episode, or if you know somebody who could benefit from these 3 things within their business, please share this episode with them, like the episode, share it with a friend and a colleague, family member that you might see that they might benefit, and leave a review or a comment on the YouTube. And I will see you on the next episode of the Business Building Blocks podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Building Blocks podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. If you found value in our conversation, please leave a quick review, like, or share. It helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. For more resources and insights, visit KristinaSchmitt.ca, where you can find tools and support to empower your leadership journey. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.